No, but I mean, all right. But my aunt went to prom with Mike Judge.
What?
Yeah, because so he's from New Mexico, Highlands School from Beavis and Butthead. That's a real school.
No
Uh,
shit.
or Del.
Your
Yeah.
aunt went to Beavis and Butthead school.
Yep. Yeah.
Get the fuck
She
out of
they
here.
took him to the prom. They went to
Ooh,
the prom together. Isn't that weird? Just random.
that's a good story. I like that. It's the kind of stuff you won't find on other lesser podcasts.
The lesser podcast where they talk about stuff that actually matters.
No, I think it's neat. I think it's neat. I'm into it. All right, what else we got? Thank you so much for stopping by for another edition of People Are Terrible. I'm Jeremy, and I'm joined as always with co-host and fellow People Are Terrible enthusiast, Caleb Miles.
And fellow terrible person.
That's absolutely accurate. You are a terrible, terrible person.
But I shaved,
You
which I don't know
did.
if that makes me a better person. I kind of love it and hate it all at the same time because I don't look like me at all. You should have seen when it was like clean shaven.
I want you to sing Careless Whisper to me, sexy style. You
I don't
got
even
the
know what
George Michael 5 o'clock shadow, permanent.
What is
permanent.
Careless Whisper? I have no idea.
So I'm never gonna dance again. Guilty
Oh, okay.
feet
I actually do
got
know that
no
song.
rhythm. It's a fucking jam, dude. And then the
Yeah,
saxophone.
I didn't know the name of that song.
Oh yeah, I like cheesy music. All right, guys. So today we've got some weird news headlines we're gonna discuss. Then we're gonna hit Interstate 10 and head on down to Florida for some Welcome to Florida headlines. And then each of us has brought a topic on this episode. Caleb, what do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about it's on a continuation of YouTube. Is YouTube is now censoring people such as Tim Pool and other journalists, which is yay.
And in honor of just historically us trying to be as objective and non-biased as possible, I want to just straight up confront the differences, the fundamental differences for people who may not know. They may have heard a lot of talking points about what their side and what other sides are, but I wanted to take an objective look at some of the differences between liberalism and conservatism and the left versus the right. And I don't mean pitting sides against each other. I mean, like, we're going to compare this shit and we're going to try to unpack some of it. So that's kind of what we've got planned for today's show. But we're going to kick this thing off, as always, is with the worldwide weird. Caleb, what headlines you got, man?
So man crashes into a police car while looking for Saved by the Bell clip.
Not just any man.
No, so Vermont Police said Kevin Bacon, to make the story even better, not the actor, was especially interested in an episode called Screech's Spaghetti Sauce. In the case, in case you weren't aware, driving on the open road is not the time to be looking up for Saved by the Bell TV show clips on your phone. A Vermont man learned that lesson the hard way Thursday afternoon when he sideswiped a car trying to find an episode of the 1990s sitcom. So this guy was just driving. Kevin Bacon was driving, playing around on his phone, and sideswiped a car. Saying he was charged with gross negligent operation of a vehicle and leaving the scene of a crash. He was also issued a traffic citation for texting while driving.
So texting while driving, Google searches fall into that category, I'm assuming.
Yes, I'm assuming so too.
So if you were going to sideswipe a car, what would be on the playlist?
Well, it would be People Are Terrible. That's what it would be.
Love it. Love it. For me, it could be any variety of things. Do you listen to podcasts or do you watch videos in the car?
I listen to podcasts. I do not watch videos because I'm not a psycho.
Yeah, me neither. No, I totally, yeah, I'm going to get myself in trouble. Yeah, I totally will, like, have videos on. And I'm not like intently watching them. Most of the videos that I watch, I'm essentially listening to. So they'll be playing in the car. So there is that time in between when they're playing in the car and when I'm actually searching for it that I could get pulled over. And if that were the case, it would be something lame like Screen Junkies News or some like movie bullshit podcast.
So I will correct that. Yes, I do have videos playing, but they're like Easy Allies podcast, which is a 3-hour podcast that'll start and then there's video to it, but it's literally like, it's like this. Like the video element is cool, but it's not necessary to it. It's dudes in front of microphones.
Yeah, it's not adding all that much.
Yeah, so I just listen to it because for me, podcasts have completely replaced my radio.
I wish that it was like actually Kevin Bacon, who we found out had this like really hardcore fandom of Saved by the Bell. But this is not like a, Saved by the Bell was like our time, maybe a little before my time. So I guess it would have been a bit before your time.
Oh yeah, no, and this guy does not definitely look in the target demographic. Like I grew up watching Saved by the Bell. This dude's 55 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess he was just a fan of it. So he was going to put on a 30-minute episode of Saved by the Bell, which is different because it's a format that clearly, unlike podcasts, you're supposed to watch the shit.
Yeah, there's certain things like podcasts, it's audio with a slight visual element if there's a video podcast, but the audio is where the show's at. Saved by the Bell is a show, and it's just it's a weird thing. And if you see this guy looks like he's a fan of meth, not Saved by the Bell.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Like it's not what you would think of. He has a big mustache, shaved head. He looks a little rough around the edges. I just don't know what prompted this man to be like, you know what? Screech's spaghetti. I need to watch this right now.
What does he look like he would be looking up? Ice Road Truckers?
Yeah, I was gonna say he looks like what's that? American Pickers, if anything.
Yeah, there we go. I like it. All right, what else you got?
Creature resembling Harry Potter elf appears in woman's driveway. I'm sure you've seen this video by now.
Resembling nothing, man. That is Dobby. That is straight up, no questions asked. Yeah, I tried not to read the articles that you sent me. I just made some graphics for him because I wanted to be able to have the moment of realization. But yeah, I watched the video, and I would say 95% sure that is actually Dobby.
That was my first reaction. Even on our Twitter, I retweeted it. I was like, he's out here enjoying his freedom because that's what it looked like. Like, I was like, that's Dobby. It's obviously not Dobby. What do you think it probably really is?
A kid in a Dobby mask?
Or like something, yeah, I think it's a little skinny kid with like underwear on his head or something weird.
Okay, so you don't think it was a mask?
No, I think it's just something weird. It's security footage for the listeners. It's security footage, so it's that grainy, blurry, security cam footage. And I think it could be pretty much anything. I think he just has something on his head and he's being weird. It also kind of looks like a crackhead. That was like, but it's too small, like a baby crackhead.
A baby crackhead. Yeah, I don't know, man. We talk a little bit about like UFOs and unexplained phenomenon. This is like Bigfoot territory where it's like, I don't know if it was a hoax or like you said, just somebody who unintentionally ended up looking a lot like a Gollum or a Dobby. I don't know. It's interesting to me that this kind of stuff like catches and then everybody in the world is like on that same thing. I think because it really does look like that character. I'll tell you what,
looks
guys,
like Dobby.
Just put your car on cruise control real quick and I'll play a video. So make sure to pay close attention. Oh yeah, I don't know. Where was it at? It was like not even in America, right?
It was. I thought it was. Let me go back to the article.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was. I think it was like in a car wash, wasn't it? If I remember right. And the way I found out about this is, of course, the one fucking time I log on to Twitter, this is the first thing I see.
Oh, bro, this is in your neck of the woods, Colorado Springs.
Oh, it's in Colorado Springs. Yep, it was in a woman's driveway. That's what it was, in Colorado Springs. Of course, it's in Colorado Springs. It's one of those things. I don't think it was a hoax by any stretch. I think it was a kid. I think it was a kid being, kids are, they're weird.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, I'm going to go walk around in my underwear with something on my head and just be walking around doing a weird dance. It's pretty freaking hilarious, though, when I saw it.
Uh-huh.
It's a very good dance. I thought, I was right away. I was like, is Jeremy going to go alien with it? As soon as I saw this story. Like, we have confirmation. The Navy. This was in the Navies.
So you're like, Jeremy, what did it look like to you? An alien. You fucking whack job. You fucking whack job. She says that she woke up Sunday morning, saw this on her camera, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck. And then she goes on to say that she's been keeping the lights on inside now. So I guess whatever it was, it scared her.
I mean, do you think this is anything worth being scared of?
No.
This is no.
Do you think it was her 9-year-old son, Bobby?
That's what maybe was.
Damn it, Bobby.
Damn it, Bobby. And this one is, for whatever reason, my favorite one of them. Fake license plate leads to driver's arrest in California. So police saw this license plate on a tractor trailer and pulled the guy over because they're like, this something looks up about this license plate. Do you have a picture of this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it would have really taken an eagle-eye detective to be able to put together this wasn't real. Califas.
Califas. It says instead of California, it says Califas. And it looks like it's like made out of like melted crayons.
Yeah, no shit. Like it is the worst looking. Yeah, like even it's not even like on a plate. It doesn't look like it's just like a piece of a tire or some shit.
It looks like a cake. Like if someone made a cake, like a license plate.
Yeah, like somebody ordered a license plate cake and they got it and took a picture of the fail. Like this is the picture and this is what I got.
Like, dude, grab a ruler, something.
Shit, no doubt. Get a stencil.
Here's my thing: is you can buy like plastic letters with like yellow plastic letters, just that are. Stick them onto a black thing and it would look more legit than this.
Let's be honest, you can probably buy a California license plate.
Oh yeah, no, if any of those Southwest states, you can buy IDs for nothing. You don't think a license plate? Well, here's my thing is, I don't know how, I'm assuming California is very similar to New Mexico. You can be illegal and you can get a license plate, you can get a driver's license, you can get everything. You're just an honorary citizen. So I'm like, I guess I don't understand why not just get a license plate.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess this guy probably doesn't have the highest level of thinking.
No, I wonder what the purpose in the fake tag was. I mean, obviously it was to drive around without a real registration, but it doesn't give any information about who this person was, right?
No, it does say he was arrested on drug charges, though. That's the only thing it does say.
Okay, all right. So yeah,
maybe drug dealer.
Yeah, like gotta have clean plates, man. But we'll go ahead and like I said, hit Interstate 10 and head on down to Florida for some Florida Man headlines. My favorite part of the show. Florida man steals pool floats for sex instead of raping women, police say.
Well, that's a good alternative, I guess.
100%. I mean, if you gotta choose.
Yeah, if stealing pool floats or rape, I'm on the side of the guy who steals pool floats.
So authorities say that Manin was carrying a white garbage bag filled with deflated pool floats that he planned on having sex with. He was the one in quotes that said he did it instead of raping women. So they went back to his house and they say they found approximately 75 floats inside, including ones that the victims described. Manin told authorities that he sexually gratifies himself with the pool floats instead of raping women. The victim in this case chose to pursue charges and stated that she had been a burglary victim on 2 other occasions and that he cut the screen in order to open the lock that she had secured the night before. So he's been charged with occupied residential burglary, petite theft, and criminal mischief. Never knew petite theft was a thing, but his bond was set at $500. So I guess I bring this up to ask Caleb, do you have $250 so we can get this man back on the streets?
I think we should. We need to get him back out there.
Yeah.
So when you said pool floats, I thought like the noodles, those giant noodles.
Yeah.
I was like, how the fuck is he having sex with these things?
Very pragmatic.
Still, how is he having sex with floaties?
Yeah, it doesn't seem it doesn't seem like it would feel good. It seems like it would cause some serious chafing of some kind.
Well, that's my thing is it's plastic. Aren't pool floaties plastic?
Yeah.
Right.
Even the sexy ones.
I was going to say, that sounds rough. That does not sound like a good time.
I mean, dude, I'm not saying that I'm hung like a horse, but I am saying it would take a full-size inner tube. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Is that what it was?
No, the fanoodle would do fine. That little hole in the end of the fanoodle, I'd smash.
How big are those holes? Are those holes like this big? I have no idea.
No, they're like 1 inch in diameter.
Oh, okay.
Realistic.
So more than enough space.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, I don't know. If you have to choose, guys, always have sex with the floats.
Yeah. Don't be raping people. If you're gonna
people
commit
be
a crime,
raping. Oh, good. All right.
So for the pull floats, real quick before we go, like were
Please.
they like animal shaped ones? Just like donuts? What is this?
I imagine if you have 75 of them, you have no real preference. I imagine
Very
any
true.
float will do. The picture
Um,
has like one of those big flamingo floats, but it's a Florida story, so I don't think it was actually one of the floats that had been victimized. I think it was just like a stock photo.
I was watching a show where there was a guy who was like had a balloon addiction,
Hold up,
where
what?
like he would just like rub balloons on his privates, like hot, like balloons, like blow up balloons and rub them all over. He would have a helium tank, and he had a whole room that was just full of balloons and a
What?
bed that he would just go into and whack it.
What the fuck?
I
So
mean,
it's not. This isn't an anomaly. Well, it's still an anomaly. This isn't an only time kind of situation. This has happened before.
yeah, apparently it's like a thing because I watched a documentary about it, and his wife was like, "I'm okay with it. I mean, sometimes like we have to have sex, and he has to bring balloons in the room."
Wow.
All right, cool.
All right, we're looking at inanimate objects made from rubber or plastic. Can't be sex dolls. What are you gonna have sex with? How are you gonna gratify yourself with a plastic or rubber item?
So they can't be sex dolls.
Can't you gotta
Plastic.
take those out. That's cheating.
Like, what am I gonna do? Like, rub my dick against an action figure?
I don't know, are you?
Maybe like a little Hulk one with like a kung fu grip action.
Yeah, see, that's humanoid. I'm thinking we gotta think outside the box here. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't even wrap my head
I
around
like
that concept.
that my Hulk kung fu gripping myself is not enough outside of the box.
No,
No, that's too normal.
oh yeah, I don't know. What a weird phenomenon. I know there's a lot of those things on My Strange Addiction. They don't call it strange for nothing. I've seen like a woman who will like pull the padding out of a couch and eat the fucking.
that.
You saw that?
Yeah, what the fuck?
Man, what the fuck is wrong with people? And I don't even know that that's one of the weirder things. And then like hoarders. So people do things that I don't understand. Guess that's the takeaway. All right. South Florida man says he was deceived when he bought a tiny strip of land. So, this needs a little bit of context. A South Florida man thought he snagged a deal when he paid $9,100 in an online auction for what he thought was a villa. What he got was a 1 foot by 100 foot strip of land. They took a picture of two villas and put it up for auction online, but it was the space in between the driveways of the two villas that he ended up buying.
What the fuck? There has to be some sort of legal action for that.
So, okay, as I scroll down a little bit, an official tells the South Florida Sun-Sentinel there's not a lot Kerrville Holness can do about this purchase because of the fine print, you know?
That's fucked up. But you think you could get it like because of the pictures they used or something, you could go ahead and make the case of that like it's false advertising of some sort, even if there is fine print. You think there's some legal thing you would assume.
I should hope so. I mean, we've all bought some garbage online, but this has got to be the most egregious case of just like deceitful sales practices ever. Who would think that property wasn't owned by one of those tenants or the other? I don't understand how you can auction off something that's between two. It's fucking weird, dude.
Yeah, and it's only a foot wide. It's not even like it's usable land.
Oh, you could do it. Put a mailbox on it.
Yeah, it's not even like it's like 10 feet, which still sucks. You know, but I'm like, you could maybe do, there's like a little shed. You could put something. There's literally nothing you can do on a foot.
No, maybe you like put a little hole at the end of it and practice your putting game.
So I was going to say it's probably the people who, no, it isn't the people who own the homes. Because it's like, if it was the people who own the homes, I would do something really fucked up with that one land.
Like light it on fire. Yeah.
Or just like build something disgusting. You just put a bunch of like steel dicks
Yes.
in between the two houses.
100%. Just a big giant sculpture of something just gross.
Yeah. Like something just weird, or just like a really like trash heap wall, build it really high.
This house fucks babies, and then an arrow to both sides.
Yeah, like, but it's probably not them who sold it, so it would be pointless. They'd just get screwed in it too.
Yeah, well, at that point, everybody's going down with me. If the fucking ship's sinking already, I'm taking your ass with me.
You're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Just burn it all down.
The land valued at only $50 starts on a curb and goes under a wall separating two villas in the Spring Lake community, and then out to the back of the lot. What, man? So, I mean, I don't know. Nobody wins in this situation except for the person that came up $8,600 on a 1 foot strip of grass.
Dude, that's some fucked up stuff. Like, I actually feel it's one of those things. Like, normally it's like dumb Florida man, but I could see you see pictures online. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. $9,100. Yeah, I'll build something there. You know, so I could actually see how someone could fall for this.
Yeah, that's brutal. All right, well,
What's the worst thing you've ever bought online and been disappointed in?
oh, dude, I could tell you specifically. It was some sexy lingerie that I was getting for my wife, and it ended up like, I mean, it looked like one thing, and then when we got it, it was like made out of this like weird material. It was like
It's always cheaper in person.
yeah, dude, it looked so fucking cheap, and we were just like, what is this? What about you?
So I love cheap lingerie because then you can rip it. You can do whatever you want with it. So cool. I don't care how cheap it is. My worst thing, and this is stupid, I ordered this anime box set. And I was like, it was like $2. I was like, sweet, anime box set. And I get it. And it's like a little box that someone had with the anime box set scanned on it and like taped to the front and the sides. And then you open it up and all the discs were like library copies
Oh, wow.
of the thing, just like thrown in paper sleeves.
That is so ghetto. So did you send it back?
No, I left a bad review. It was actually on Amazon. And then the person was like, I don't know why your thing, that's why it's so cheap. I'm like, well, because you posted pictures of the real fucking box set. We'll refund you your money if you delete your review. I'm like, keep my negative review. I'll lose my $3.
Yeah, 100%, man. So that was one thing, and then I ordered I don't even know the brand of it. I ordered a tablet off the internet that was about $75 to draw on, and it was just complete trash. No response. Like, it was, you're better off drawing with a mouse. Yeah, our general rule of thumb now is don't order shit from China. That's that's pretty much it. All right, well, hopefully you guys can learn a lesson from this South Florida man and make sure that you are getting what you are paying for. All right, this is from Fox News, and it says, a woman squeezes her boyfriend's genitals until they bleed. So Katie Lee Pitchford is a real ball buster and not horribly unattractive. Did you see this by any chance?
No.
She looks like she's into some rough shit. I've got some like suspenseful music playing on the channel here for some reason. Can I shut that up? Let's see.
So while you're doing that, I'm gonna pull up the picture of this girl, Florida man, balls.
Yeah. I'm not saying she's not she's not a dime piece, man, but she looks like a goth. I don't know, she's like, I guess,
yeah, she's all right.
Yeah, she's not bad.
Not good enough to let her squeeze my balls until they bleed, but
no, I don't know if I mean, he has a live-in girlfriend who assaulted him, says the police report. Identified as 21-year-old Katie Lee Pitchford had become enraged during an argument. She struck him with her fists and scratched the left side of his face. Then she grabbed him by his balls until they bled. So his balls bled?
Yeah.
Internally, you think? Or are we talking like an abrasion, like her fingers scratched the scrotum? Yeah, because your balls wouldn't bleed. I feel like, and I don't know this because science, but would your balls explode? Like, would they burst?
I would assume you could literally like destroy a testicle.
Oh my god, dude! Oh.
Did you see the reason why the argument started?
Nah.
Pritchard claims her boyfriend became jealous about her wanting to go on a date with another guy.
See, now that's unreasonable.
I know, what a dick. How dare he not want to let his girlfriend go on a date with another guy?
Well, she fucking showed him. I almost can guarantee that once that guy reads this headline, he's not going to want to fucking date her anymore.
No. Yeah, no, this is not a type of woman like you read the story. I don't care how bad you want to sleep with her, you go, nah, I'm good.
She's like a mix between Wednesday and Morticia Adams if they lived in Florida.
I would agree with that. I think it's pretty accurate.
I mean, that's I don't think it's yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I just like, this is a PSA to everyone out there. You remember that name, Katie Lee Pitchford. She will crush your nuts
too, of like, don't date crazy bitches.
No doubt.
I was to say, we've all done the thing too where like you're like, yeah, this girl's a little bit of a bitch, but she's pretty or whatever. And then you get older and you're like, no, do not do that. I don't care how pretty the girl is. If she's crazy, run. You know,
Yeah.
and this applies the other way too. I don't care how hot the guy is, women. If he's crazy, leave.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, this couldn't be the first time that the crazy presented itself. The fact that she's wanting to go out on dates with other guys in the first place shows that, I mean, you know, some relationships are like open like that, but obviously this wasn't one of them. He's like, baby, why are you trying to go out on a date with another dude? And she's like, give me them fucking balls.
Apparently he was sleeping. Imagine waking up just to getting your balls just squeezed super tight.
You ever been kicked in the balls?
Oh, yeah. Horrible. It's awful. I actually have a story when I was a kid. So about getting kicked in the balls. I was first, second, third grade, right around that. It was definitely young. And I remember I was at the playground and there was this girl who had some issues. And she's talking to me. And even then I was like a nice little kid who would talk to anyone. And I was trying to talk to her and she's like, oh, talking to me about how she knows karate. And she pulls her leg all the way back and just full force kicked me in the nuts.
Ow.
Yeah, it was miserable.
Like you do in karate.
Yeah, nut kick.
Yeah. it's like the crane kick, only really, really cheap shot.
Oh, yeah, it was horrible. I remember just like, and now looking back, I'm like, that could have caused some serious damage.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, this just hurts. But now, like looking back as an adult, I'm like, that could have fucked me up for life.
My specific ball story, and I think I've been kicked in the balls before. I think I've had either my younger brother, or I'm sure it's happened over the years, some girl. But I will never forget, I was at the petting zoo, the Gulf Breeze Zoo, and there's a little petting zoo section of it where it's mostly like farm animals. And I had my older brother's friend coax me into grabbing a billy goat by the goatee. And I did. I like slowly approach it, and I grabbed its goatee, and I just gave it a little yank, like nothing too serious, just kind of fucking instigate. And the thing just full on horns rams me right in the freaking crotch. And I remember just crying like a baby for like 15 minutes afterwards, because that goat wrecked me.
Well, I it had been last year. I popped a blood vessel in my testicle, which I would never recommend to anyone.
No.
Ooh,
what are you doing, man? Be easy on your junk.
I know, apparently being a little too rough down there.
Ow.
I didn't even know it happened until, this is way too MI, but like I finished and blood came out.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God, I have cancer. I'm dying. That's was my. And so I went to the doctor immediately, and they're like, they ran all the tests, and they're like, you're fine. They're like, this is actually super common. You popped a blood vessel somehow. They're like, it'll go away in a couple days. And it didn't hurt. And I was like, cool, whatever. And then like the next 3 or 4 days, it hurt. I knew I did something there. I just walked around with that constant like throbbing. It was awful.
Ow. So I worked in the restaurant industry for many years, and I remember I was changing a keg at a bar and grill that I worked at. And I was just like, yoked up the empty keg, no problem, turned around, grabbed the full keg, whipped back around, and didn't feel anything at the time. But apparently I gave myself a hernia, because like for a week after that, I felt like I got kicked in the nuts, only it was higher up. Have you ever had a hernia?
No, but I've heard they're miserable.
It is the worst. So what happens, I'm sure most of you guys know, but like the lining in your stomach kind of opens up enough for your intestines to like poke through and breach. and it creates this just really intense pressure. And that was not a fun experience, because I was at work just like, oh my God, I felt like I got kicked in the balls, but you would know where it originated, and it felt like a third ball had got kicked, and it was like up in me. It was fucking not a good feeling.
Yeah, I've heard. I've never had it, but I've heard they're like miserable. Painful.
Yeah. So anyways, guys, you ever been kicked in the balls before? What was the best ball kicking you've ever received? Let us know down in the comments section. We'll go ahead and move on to the topics of the week. Caleb, take it away.
So this is a continuation of the YouTube censoring. So Tim Pool, who is personally one of my favorite YouTubers, he does excellent work. I don't know how familiar you are with him, but he does very centrist. He considers himself like a center Democrat, center liberal. And he does very good work. He calls out the left a lot, and his reasoning is he feels like that's his own side. He needs to clean up his side. And he mainly calls out like the progressive extremes, but he got involved in the Vox story by covering it just like we do. That was one thing. Nothing happened there, but he was always like, he's like, with everything that's happening, eventually this is all going to come back to me. Then Project Veritas, which I'm not sure how familiar with Project Veritas, but for those of you who aren't, they're a conservative organization that does, I would actually call it journalism, like investigative journalism. Years ago, they did a story where CNN said Russiagate was nothing, that it was just all for ratings, that they knew it was. That was years and years ago. They just broke a story saying, doing some investigative journalism with like leaked audio and emails about Pinterest censoring conservatives, particularly pro-life groups, how they like would purposely go in and remove that stuff. And so Project Veritas was banned on Twitter for doing this, for doing journalism, which is to me ridiculous. I don't care if it's left or right. They should be allowed to investigate and leak audio. Tim Pool then covered the story, literally just read the story, very similar to how we do, read the story and commented on it and talked about how ridiculous it was. And YouTube pulled down his video over this. Cited legal matters, cited a whole different things. He's reached out to people and he can't get it. And Tim Pool's a big YouTuber. I just find it alarming where commenting on journalism, and Tim Pool is a journalist, like he's done boots on the ground journalism before. Like the fact that someone can comment on it is now enough to get banned or the video pulled is terrifying to me personally.
Yeah, it is. It's really problematic. It's really problematic, and we have seen it quite a bit, and I 100% acknowledge there seems to be, if not a media bias, then at least an entertainment industry bias. It seems culturally a lot of the most influential people seem to be on the liberal side lately, and that they get lots of platforms and opportunities to share and spread their ideology. For an example, like the Oscar speeches, right? Mm-hmm. These are things that are heard around the world in living rooms across the country at the very least by, millions of people. And so there is a lot of opportunities for that particular ideology to at least get showcased, at least get a spotlight on it every once in a while. While it does seem, and again, I don't have any facts or statistics to back it up, it does seem like people are more quick to shut down conservative voices specifically. And I gotta kind of bring it back around and just ask, do you think it is because of the toxicity of not necessarily the objective person at the top, but do you think that misinterpretation of that same kind of information threatens people?
No, I think that misinterpretation happens on the left and the right. I mean, you go to any lefty video, you'll find just as many crazy comments as you do on any right-wing video. I think that everyone has their crazies. I think this happens because everybody, first of all, let's all acknowledge every person is biased. You're biased, I'm biased, and I see things through a lens, you see things through a lens. These tech companies see things through, they tend to be liberal, and they see things through that lens. So unintentionally or intentionally, it makes sense why, if you have an entire company that tends to lean one way, why that in turn would end up being why that would end up being targeting, not targeting, but whether it is targeting or
No,
not, it would end
for
up
sure.
tend to block out one side.
Yeah. So what is the solution to that? I mean, I do acknowledge, like, if it seems like one side is getting shut down, is the solution to form an alternative streaming platform with its own bias?
I mean, that's kind of what mainstream news did, because I always fight back when people go, oh, remember when news was objective? News was never objective. It was always liberal.
I'm pretty sure prior to Rupert Murdoch purchasing Fox News, there was actually laws in place that news and journalism had to be at least present both sides of an argument and be as objective as possible. But editorialized journalism got very popular when 24-hour news networks came into prominence.
The news cycle. But to me, like, even if you look at what's his name, the one that everyone talks about is America's Journalist, the
Walter Cronkite.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
He said in numerous quotes, "Oh, you can't be a journalist and not be liberal. You have to be liberal." Like, he had a bias. That's fine. He's allowed to have a bias, and I think conservative news grew a big part through talk radio, and I don't know if that made it better or worse. To be completely honest, I think it's great we have more voices, but I also feel like now we have more voices, it's drifted everyone farther. So I don't know if creating a new platform is the best thing. I think we need to decide, is YouTube a publisher, or is YouTube a like a telecommunications platform?
Sure.
Because if it's a publisher, then they have all right to like take people off. They're a publisher. If they are a telecommunications platform, then they don't really have a right. You know what I mean? Like, it's changed. It's the new public square argument.
Because there are shareholders and investors connected to it. So then it becomes this push and pull about whether or not our own ideology should come into play for it. I think, generally speaking, the idea of liberalism, the very nature of what it's supposed to be, and I'm not talking, there are obviously going to be people that are a part of a group that don't represent the group as a whole. But I think liberals should be open to other ideologies. And I do feel like there's this idea, like, you can't stop progress. Progress is a natural occurrence. It's going to continue to happen. So people who are conservatives will, just as a result of society moving forward, will have to redefine those lines generationally, because where 20 years ago, anti-marriage, anti-gay marriage was a big sentiment in the Conservative Party. Now it's not as much, because you can't even run on that platform and have people are not going to question it or be as quick to side with it as they used to be, because society has changed. And that's one thing about being a progressive is I think that there's a natural progression of things, and then I think there are the extremists who want to push progress faster than society is ready for it to be pushed. And I think those people really rub other people the wrong way, because they feel like they have intellectual superiority, and nobody wants to be talked down to.
Well, and then there's the whole the regressive left, they call them, which is the people who are pro. Like, to me, it blows my mind when I meet liberals who are pro censorship. It just blows my mind, because our generation, the liberals were the one who were anti. It was the conservatives who were pro censorship for our generation. Like, when we
100%, 100%.
And now those have seemed to flip. Like, you hear conservatives all the time being like, you should be able to say what you want and do what you want. And then the quote unquote liberals, I would argue that progressives are not liberals, to me personally, at all. I feel like the a liberal is like a European right wing in our country, you know, like it's like our liberal is different. Progressives are more. I don't know. I just think it's weird that they're pushing censorship and deplatforming and cutting down voices, and that you're seeing these big tech companies fall into it. I find it very terrifying when someone like Project Veritas gets banned off Twitter for breaking a story. To me, that's terrifying. The alternative of that would be if, let's say, a company came out and did some hidden camera videos and found some really scary, which I'm sure they have been, found some really scary things that were said or done by, let's say, NRA, something traditionally right. You know, I would never want them to be deplatformed for breaking a story. The more that's out there, the better. The more knowledge we have about organizations and people and companies, to me, the better. This is one way where I'm very liberal. You know, I feel like that's a good thing for us to know. If something comes out that Pinterest is, you know, censoring conservatives, that's a good thing that we should know on left and right. But instead, people see it through tribalism and through their ideology instead of this is a right-wing news source or quote-unquote news source, but they do some journalism, breaking a story on a company. And all of a sudden, people on the left now are pro-company and pro-big business, and let's protect them because it fits our ideology. And it's terrifying to me that there is a big chunk of this country now that is kind of anti-free speech.
That is extremely troubling, and I think that's one of the biggest flaws with, and I think it's what adds so much ammunition to to the argument that liberals are almost trying to become totalitarian in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah,
and it's like, on one hand, the opportunities are there for conservatives. I mean, in theory, the opportunities are there for conservatives to be as dominant in these spheres of entertainment and media and journalism. Why is it that you think that these institutions tend to be more leftist? Because if there were more conservative voices in Hollywood, then maybe there would be more of an opportunity for the conservative voices to be heard.
There are conservative voices in Hollywood. You'll hear all the time major like people like Ben Shapiro going, I know actors all the time who behind closed doors will tell me, oh man, I love your stuff, but I can never say it out loud.
But to me, that's just totally hearsay. Like, unless I heard it from that person.
I mean, but you can even look at examples. Anytime someone does even anything remotely conservative from Hollywood, they get shouted at. Chris Pratt
100%.
gives a speech where he mentions God, and he got blowback for it. And I was just like, you guys need to chill. Like, Chris Pratt is a nice dude.
Aren't we in a place, though, where you can't even post a video of, like, swimming with a killer whale without somebody coming after you for the fact that you don't respect their ecosystem? You're a fucking, you know, like, I think that because of this platform, because of social media, it's the idiots who become the cheerleaders for everybody. It's the dumbest people that get to represent liberalism. It's the dumbest people that get to represent conservatism. And then we look at it through this very, like you said, we all have bias. Our life experiences have all amalgamated to lead us to the person that we are today, which is different from the person we're going to be 5 years from now. It's growth, and it happens to all of us. But yeah, it feels like there is a push right now to silence people who, is it rooted in politics, or is it rooted in identity?
I think both of those are tied together. Before I get to that, though, you said, why aren't there places where conservatives flourish? YouTube is one of them.
Yeah, 100%. These people that, yes, and yes, the people that we talk about, your Ben Shapiro's, your Steven Crowder's, your the guy that we're Tim Pool, they are not wanting for views. They do splendidly. So the idea that they are being silenced, the idea that they are being oppressed, is allowing them a platform for growth, and it stokes the fire for the people who do feel systematically oppressed, I guess, to have a voice.
To me, I feel like YouTube is one of those things. Conservative voices are are growing, and there's always a new controversy. Now, do I think maybe YouTube is intentionally targeting conservatives? Maybe not. I feel like they like I said, have inherent biases, but also they fall to the outrage mob because they are advertisers. At the end of the day, YouTube is Google, they're about the almighty dollar. Of course they are. They're a giant organization. And if they think something might harm their platform, harm their ads, they're going to go after it. It just tends to be that the outrage mob right now, I feel like in the 90s it was definitely reversed, but right now the outrage mob tends to be on the left.
So you feel like when you watch a person with a liberal ideology versus a person with a conservative ideology, that the liberal person seems more angry?
Yeah. No, I would say it depends on the content creator. I wouldn't want to do that because I would say right now there's equal amounts, because I think Fox News is anger and fear mongering. I also think CNN and Don Lemon and all that, it's very anger and fear mongering too, and Rachel Maddow, those type, like it's very fear mongering on both sides because it's what gets views, saying, hey, this may not be a big deal is not as scary and as click worthy as, oh my God, the world's ending. This person's coming for you. They're coming for the gays, or on the other side, they're coming for traditional marriage. Like there's no nuance left in it. And I feel like the difference that I've noticed personally, and correct me if I'm wrong, is conservatives will be loud, they'll be angry, but they don't openly call to deplatform, where the left will be loud, will be angry, and then openly lead campaigns to deplatform and shut down the others' talk. And that's what bothers me more.
The deplatform thing, I definitely agree with. I just like when you set the liberal pundits and your CNNs against your Fox News, the red-faced guys usually tend to be I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I get my news from your Jon Stewarts or your Trevor Noahs as opposed to your Rachel Maddow's. And maybe I don't know Rachel Maddow's stuff enough to know whether or not, but she seems relatively measured. And I know that Rush Limbaugh and Alex Jones don't get to be representative of an entire group, but two of the biggest voices in conservatism, the ones that lead the charge for the average American conservative, they seem to be pretty pissed off about the way things are going.
Yeah, watch Rachel Maddow. She's closer to Alex Jones than anything, I would say.
She's emotionally invested.
She screams.
Okay.
She pushes conspiracy theories nonstop, which the Alex Jones being conservative thing blew my mind because he was liberal when Bush was in office,
I think these two topics do go super hand in hand. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and switch over. I got this graph yesterday. I thought it was really cool. And maybe I'm ignorant, but I did preliminary research, an hour of reading into this stuff, and it opened my eyes in ways that I previously wasn't necessarily as aware of as I thought I was. And I think that that's a great thing, to be able to have, new information or new, to concretely be able to say what the belief system of this is. Because there's a lot right now of this word used to mean this, but now all of a sudden it means this. And I have to say, like, if the definition of it is one thing, then who gets to decide what the new definition of said thing is? You get what I'm saying there?
No, I agree. I feel like all this is fluid and the definitions change so much. Depending on who you talk to, I'm either alt-right or I'm a liberal, depending on who's talking to me.
100%.
And I feel like because of that, it's very hard to be like I'm one side or the other. For me, I tend to be, and there's something on the graph that you've heard me say on here that I tend to agree with, and that's why I tend to fall on right.
All right, let's break this thing down. So it's I'm showing you guys on the screen here, but it's broken down into the left and the right. It breaks it down into subcategories, starting with the government. The left political parties are communism, labor, Democrats. The parties on the right, Republican, conservative, nationalist. Are we on the same page as far as those things go?
I feel like that's pretty accurate. Yes.
Communism seems to be a wordy dird in a lot of America, right?
Yeah, not anymore. I would say now it's almost particularly on that side tends to be. I mean, we have the Nationalist Communist Party of America, and we have major like people in Hollywood who are members of it. So I don't feel like it's as dirty as it was or personally should be.
Nationalist, wordy dird.
Very much, because people don't understand the definition of it.
Well,
I always say this.
On one hand, nationalist basically means patriot. On the other hand, Nazi comes from nationalist. So there is an implication there of what a nationalist is. However, take it away. What were you about to say about that?
Yeah, I was just going to say Hitler, nationalist. Gandhi, nationalist. Very different people.
Correct. So these things pretty objective. We're moving it down to progressive nature. This is on the left. Progressive nature looks to the future. Egalitarianism, idealism, equality. On the right side, equity, pragmatism, meritocracy, looks to the past. Conservative nature. We on the same page there?
Yeah, I would actually flip equity and equality, though, on those two. You hear the term social equity a lot on the left now instead of equality.
So what is the difference between equity and equality?
So equity is, in my opinion, more leveling the playing field so that everyone's equal. Equality is just giving everyone the same right. So in my opinion, I would actually flip those two.
The quality of being fair and impartial is equity. Equality, I imagine, is kind of the same thing, just in different terms. The state of being equal, especially in status, rights, and opportunities. So what you said about leveling the playing field, I see how that applies. It's like you shouldn't be given something. You should work the equal amount and reap the equal rewards, as opposed to you have been historically undermined, so we're going to give you a bump to level the playing field. Maybe.
Yeah. Then the line beneath it is, you've heard me something say this right here, where focus, where it says on the left, society, on the right, the individual. And this is where I always tend to say why I'm right wing.
Okay, that's okay. So trade, fair trade, support workers. Oh, sorry, guys. On the left, trade, fair trade. On the right, trade, free trade. On the left, support workers. On the right, support employers. On the left, personal freedom for goal. On the right, economic freedom for goal. Focus on society on the left, focus on individual on the right. All right, so you say you tend to fall more on the right side because of this particular part. So what is it about focusing on the individual that's better than focusing on society?
So people who have focused on society traditionally, it hasn't ended that's very authoritarian, where and this is ways where I think there's a lot of hypocrisy in both sides. So focus on the individual, I tend to consider myself a true conservative. I'm pro-gay marriage because that should be the conservative stance under this dogma, you know? But I feel like at the end of the day, I know how to live my life better than anyone else. And if I want to fuck up my life, or if I want to do it well, that's my business to do that. And I feel like communism has tried to regulate society for the good of all. It's done it pretty bad. Hitler, which people throw Hitler on the right, Hitler's European right, which is American left. You know, yes, I mean, are we saying Hitler was about the individual? No, he was about an entire group, about the nation, nationalism, yes, but he was about the society. And that's where this comes into weird too. So on the right, you have nationalism, which is patriotism, focusing on society. But then on the same list here, you have focused society on the left. And I'm like, well, those two things kind of are go hand in hand. Nationalism a lot of time is about quote unquote society.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a really fair point. In my mind, I think if every individual were to focus on themselves, then society would flourish, as opposed to trying to make society as a whole work better. So I definitely can see the right wing side of this. And that's another thing I should say at the beginning, like on paper right here, I don't think either of these things are inherently bad. Like they're both pretty measured and have values and make sense. I think some people do fall on different sides of the lines on certain issues, and I can definitely see the focus being on the individual in that particular context. I do also feel like, protecting the downtrodden and trying to look out for people who maybe didn't have the same social graces. Like, for example, okay, let's take people with bad work ethic out of the equation, but what about people with disabilities,
Yeah, and I would agree. Like technically, I would say under this dogma of just like concept, we probably right wing wouldn't want to support those. Granted, I don't know many right wing people who have a problem with disability. Yeah,
Right.
But yeah, I would say that's why I don't think most people fall. I think there's things on both that you can look at and go, well, I'm that.
Yeah,
This,
for
I'm
sure.
that.
So the economy, this is important. I think this is a big area of contention on both. I think fundamentally Republican and Democrat really vary. I think politically the most here, where in the leftist economy, they regulate the economy, business and industry to tax and spend, where on the government, on the right side, the economy is deregulated, business and industry don't tax and spend. So fundamentally, what are the differences between tax and spend and don't tax and spend?
So this is very much free market versus government. This is essentially what it is. And as a person who definitely I definitely am on the right. Then not 100% though, even here. I say definitely, but I would never want to live in a world with no regulation, obviously, because I think that's naive. But on this, for the purposes of this context, the right believes let the free market battle it out and let competition drive down prices, let it do that. The left tends to believe in a more redistributionist sort of attitude. I would say take from, redistribute, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's actually social programs, or whether it's just deregulating companies to make the market fair again.
This is probably the least sexy of a lot of the politics part of it, but I feel like if more voters were voting on these kind of things as opposed to all the social and cultural elements that are associated with the parties, that like this is the important shit, is like, do you want to spend your taxes to protect a group of people that are strangers for the greater good of society, or do you want to make sure that everybody's taking care of their own shit and that we don't have to spend extra taxes because the economy is supporting itself, which is a great idea in theory. I gotta ask, do you see problems with lobbyists of big corporations and big businesses going in and sitting down in offices with people in Washington and getting tax breaks for the wealthiest people in the world?
Yeah. So here's the thing where I tend to be more liberal in why I say I don't, even though I tend to believe more in economic freedom, there is also the more liberal view of it, of exactly what you said. There's people who have more money to game the system, and go in and do things that might hurt society as a whole. And this is something that I tend to fall. The thing is so I would say we're already pretty center left with our economy anymore. I mean, we haven't had a traditional right-wing economy in a long time.
Sure.
And I feel like we do have things in place already to stop this. but it still does happen. And there's a lot of left-wing politicians who do this too. I feel like it's everyone lobbies.
Yes, of course. Once you get in that position of power, you tend to want to keep it. And I think that's permeates through all sorts of aspects of just everything politics.
I do agree with what you said. This is the least sexy part, and this is the most important part.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we get into the stuff where I think this is the big lion's share of what politicians are speaking to, especially in campaigning, because it's where they start to be able to get emotional responses out of voters. And that seems to be the thing. It's not the intellectual thing that's going to drive us out to the voting ballots, or drive us out to the polls. It's going to be the emotional thing. So society and culture on the left, basically community based on ethics. The world can be improved, bring in the new. Utopianism, which is inclusive, multicultural, and evolving. Society and culture on the right, community based on morals. Protect the good things about the world. Preservation. Exclusive, established, nationalistic. What do you think?
I think this is pretty fair. My thing is, in this whole article, this whole chart, there's a lot of framing going on because, like I said, there is no such thing as an unbiased person. I do think this person tried to be as unbiased as possible. But community based on morals and community based on ethics, I mean, those are so close wording that we're splitting hairs at this point.
Yeah, I think morality may tie, and this is just my interpretation of it, I think morality may tie closer to religion than ethics does. I
mean, there's a lot of people with morals who are atheists. I was an atheist a long time. I had a strict moral code. I feel like, isn't morals just like the concept, ethics is the implementation?
I don't know. I'm about to look so that I'm not interpreting it. They're sometimes used interchangeably. They're different. Ethics refers to rules provided by an external source. Morals refer to an individual's own principles regarding right or wrong.
Under that definition, yes, I would agree.
So society gets to decide what's right and wrong, as opposed to the individual getting to decide what's right and wrong. It seems like, which can be a dangerous thing.
So this is what I would agree with. So morals, again, the individual comes from within. It comes from your quote unquote church, your family, whatever. Outside force, ethics, government. We want to regulate morality. Yeah. So I would agree with that. I feel like the left does want to regulate morality more than the right.
Family, this is where I get a little more purple. Let's see, nurturing love, instilling morals, leads to a self-nurturing child. Education is relate and cooperate with others. Relationship built on respect and trust creates a fulfilled adult, where then this is a little hard to explain, but on the family side on the right, it is basically tough love, strict parent, instilling strength, creates a relationship that's more built on fear, which creates a child who is more likely to be concerned with self-defense, moral strength, self-discipline, which builds character to create a self-reliant adult. So this relationship built on respect and trust versus a relationship built on respect and fear. What would your parenting strategy be?
So I think like most every person in the world, it's a combination. I don't know either of these families. And here's another thing that bothered me with this. So on the right, we just talked about how based on morals, but then in the family, instilling morals on the left is the principle. And I'm like, okay, so even on the left, your base is your right wing that we just talked about. And I have a theory that I've always said, most liberals in their personal life live very conservatively. They raise their kids very conservatively. Most people do. As much as we try to rail against that, it's a societal norm at this point.
I was raised very much in the left side, as far as my family, we were able to basically do what we wanted to do as long as we were openly communicating about it, you know? And I'm not saying that was necessarily for the better. I think if I were going to be a parent, I would probably, because of my own upbringing, experience growing up, I would probably try to implement some of the things from the right side, because there is this really, and this is an important thing that I definitely have noticed, and that's that for a party that seems to be so concerned with society, we are so self-absorbed. Liberals are like the most self-congratulatory, everybody's special. I'm not even going to use the snowflake terminology because it just has it's such a specific vernacular, but
connotation.
Yeah. The idea that individualism is the most important thing in the world, but then society is also important. I just don't understand. It's like we've all got this inflated sense of self, just an inflated sense of self, like it matters all that much. Where in, biologically, I guess more cynically, it's like, no, we pretty much are just another species of animal that happens to be able to, like, yeah. It's weird, but that's definitely something I have noticed.
I would actually agree on that. I think you actually hit the nail on the head. I feel like that's why I find this chart at some point in time is almost comical, because it'll be like, liberals are more concerned about society. People on the right are not as concerned about the individual. But then you get down here and they're like, being a self-reliant adult, and it's a lot of times you hear people on the right talking about the decay of society more than you do people on the left. Yeah, 100%.
That's actually a good point as well. And the idea that people on the left tend to populate urban areas while people on the right tend to populate rural areas, that may have a huge factor in why there are so many influential people on the left, because there's not networks and studios and all of that stuff in rural areas.
I agree with that. Also, another thing on this chart, it says, and here's shows a difference of ideology. So I would consider everything under this family umbrella conservative, personally, because I was raised both of these principles. Like I could talk about sex in my house, but I also had rules, And the conservative viewpoint, as someone who sees this, where it's a self-reliant adult and fulfilled adult, the conservative argument is that a self-reliant adult is a self-fulfilled adult.
Correct. I think, okay, so splitting hairs there, a fulfilled adult seems more as an identity based thing, where a self-reliant adult is more of a pragmatic type thing, where a fulfilled adult is more of like this lofty, it's kind of like the concept of freedom or something like that. It's this elusive thing that, like, fulfillment, what even is that? But they think that if you are able to express yourself, then you are living a more enriched life, where a person on the right, very pragmatically, says if you're a self-reliant adult is more important than how you feel about your sense of self. Can you take care of your shit? Well, then good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And this is why I say even this. So most people live right wing. They get a job, they pay their bills, they raise their family. Like there's very few people who truly live liberal lifestyles. We've all known a couple of these people who are up in the mountains, free, love, those type of people. Like that's the ultimate idealized, self-expression. Those people are very, very far and few between. Most people I know who call themselves liberals are still like, I want to go to my job and I want to work hard and I want to get promoted and I'm self-driven. And that's why I find that stereotype also damning to liberals, because I feel like most liberals at your job are conservatives. They work their ass off. They're trying to be self-reliant and move up the corporate ladder just as much as any conservative is.
Yeah, for sure. So beliefs on the left: religion, scientific, non-organized, unconventional. Beliefs on the right: theistic, organized, conventional. Any pushback there?
The scientific is the only one, because I feel like both left and right are very anti-scientific depending on the issue.
In my experience, I feel like this is pretty close to accurate. Not to say there aren't atheists who are conservatives or right wings, and not to say there aren't plenty of Christians who are liberal. But it seems like the institution itself, like the gospel according to whatever book that these people are referring to, but is that liberals are more open to ideas like evolution and things like that, where I think beliefs in theism, theistic beliefs inform a lot of stances on reproductive rights, stances on sexuality and gender preferences and all that kind of shit.
I would agree with some of that. Yeah, I think that, definitely organizations do it, but I feel like there's I don't know any person on the left or the right who is raised in a no organization bubble either.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure.
the thing is, too, people say, like the right wing has organizations such as churches. Schools are liberal. That's a huge organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Like, we all have those, and we all get our morals and our code of living and our code of rights from someone. We all like to think that we just woke up one day and thought of them, but we didn't. None of us.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So rights. This is another interesting one. Rights on the left. Others must observe. Rights on the right. Others must not interfere. I tend to lean a little right on that one. I feel like it's tricky because, of course, others must observe. Like, we got to make sure that people are not being treated poorly. I mean, if we can, if it's in our ability to stick up for the little guy, I think that's a very important thing about liberalism. And I'd say if I self-identify as a liberal, and what the biggest takeaway to me is, look out for the little guy. I really think it's an empathy thing, and that's where I really do kind of tend to lean towards that side. But what do you think about the others must observe, others must not interfere, and then the other shit I said?
Like everything, this is going to be a center thing. So I do think at the end of the day, others must not interfere. The government is to stop people from interfering with your rights, not forcing them to do the thing, but they're to observe them. But at the same time, they're kind of the same thing. So the civil rights movement, that's the government forcing businesses to, and this I'll probably fall a little more left wing, because I know people who are super right who are like, oh, civil rights movement shouldn't have been done. And on an ideological stance, yeah, I can see how they make the argument. It's a free business. It's do what it wants. But I tend to fall a little left on this, where sometimes the government does have to step in and be like, hey, you can't treat X, Y, and Z person like this based on their skin color, per se.
Correct.
But that's forcing others to not interfere, is how I look at it. A lot of these things are very similar, just different implementations of how to get there.
Well, and that's exactly right. I think that's it's not it is left and right, but they're not diametrically opposed to each other. It's essentially the same thing viewed through a slightly different lens. Like you said, they kind of are the same thing. But the angle from which you're approaching that same core concept are just slightly different from each other. And again, I think both of us have indicated, like, the right place to be is a little bit of all of these things. It's not really one or the other. It's like you should be able to implement things from both sides, and people have complex feelings. The people I'm fucking concerned about are the ones who are like,
who don't,
who already know, you know what I mean? The people that are so fucking sure they're right, and it's like, man, it must be nice to be so confident. To walk
through life going, yep, this is the right way to live. I have it figured out, and I'm 20 years old.
Yeah, great for you, but it just, it's like, I think there's strength in being able to acknowledge that, like, maybe we don't all fucking have it figured out. Maybe it is nice to at least humor the other side, as opposed to just strictly being tribal all the time. Go ahead.
And politics to me are like a buffet. You walk through the buffet and you pick the good shit and you leave all the unhealthy shit behind. That's how you should do.
Equality is a level playing field, believes the left. On the right, equality is opportunity. That to me seems like a dissonance. Equality is opportunity. No, how could equality be opportunity? That's probably more with the publisher of the infographic than it is with the actual ideas of the right. But do you?
Yeah, I would agree with that because I think the stance is I think both sides actually are fighting for equality in their own ways, if I'm being completely honest. Um, Perfect example is I'll use a left wing example that totally goes against this. This is where equity, people talk about social equity, and I hate the term social equity, where the left always talks about it. So, a universities accepting people in. So, people on the right believe you take a test, it's how hard you work, whatever you need to do, you score this test. It's an even playing field. People on the left go, no, we need to adjust the scores for economic reasons, this and this. And that's why you have places like Harvard where if you're Asian, you have to do way better than I would, and definitely way better than like my wife would have to do as a black woman, because they believe we have to level everything out based on these arbitrary skin color things. So you could have an Asian kid from a poor neighborhood who has to score higher than a black kid who went to private school his entire life.
Yeah,
You know?
right.
And that's where I feel like it's all a gray area, because for me, I don't consider that a level playing field. I consider that the exact opposite of a level playing field.
I 100% agree.
And yeah, so I feel like opportunity is very vague.
So there is this other similar line of thought, but the other side is like, since 1989, the Anti-Discrimination Act was kind of put in place to where you can't discriminate on hiring depending on race, religious belief, anything. You can't discriminate. And interestingly, 36% less. If you have a black sounding name, you're 36% less likely to get a call back for even to get an interview, to get in the door. So while the laws have changed to hopefully put everybody on a level playing field, the playing field still isn't level because of this. Even if it's unintentional, even if it is a liberal person, they might not be aware of their own bias, but they are less likely to hire somebody. Basically, that's the other. That's the way that I take it. Not necessarily, it's this inherent fear of the other, and the other has been black people in America for quite a while. And then Latino people, I think it's like 26% less likely to get a call back. So there is definitely still that bias going on,
Well, and then there was that recent study. I don't know if we covered it on here, where they did emails with conservatives and liberals. Did I talk about this?
Mm-mm.
So they did an email where they were doing tests with conservatives and liberals, where they would give people, they'd be like, hey, send an email, have a correspondence with this person. And they would do like a very black sounding name and a very Hispanic sounding name and all that. And pretty much the conservative worded the email same on all emails. It was like, hey, this is how this is. It was very just like, hey, this is point A, point B, point this. Overwhelmingly, people on the left dumbed down the language when talking to minorities and changed their speech patterns pretty heavily. So we can regulate this stuff, and sometimes the unintended consequences are actually a backfire. We regulated. There's states that you can't do background checks in for employment, because they say it's discriminatory. Guess what? In those states, black people get hired way less than in states where you can run a background check. And the reason why is they regulated because, and not saying this is right, but they regulated saying you can't do a background check because it's discriminatory. So people looked and were like, well, statistically speaking, black people are more likely to have a felony, so I just won't hire black people.
Yeah,
and
right.
It had a horrible implication in those states where they've been outlawed background checks. So this is the weird thing of, it's all of this to me is a gray area. And like I always say, I think both sides on a whole want similar things. They just have different ways to get there.
I think the support graphic that we're going to touch on real quick. We'll wrap this thing up soon. But yeah, I don't know where these statistics came from. I should first off preface it by saying that. But what it says is 54% of liberals are in favor of gay rights. 44% of conservatives are in favor of gay rights. That sounds exceptionally low on both ends.
Again, this is super. Look what happened in California when the Obama election happened. They had the highest outturn of black people. They voted down gay rights because a lot of people live very, very conservatively, but vote very democratically.
Yeah, that's a good point. Abortion rights, 68%. Well, first of all, Caleb, gay rights, for or against?
100% for.
For. All right, abortion rights, 66% on the left, 42% on the right. Caleb, abortion rights.
I don't know. I tend to be more pro-life, but that's even such a gray area for me because I will never be the person who will look at a woman who's been raped and tell her you have to have that child, because I find that just inhumane to look at someone and tell them that.
And I think that's another, it's like, in my mind, I always go to that exception as opposed to the majority. Because, yeah, for the most part, I think it's pretty, if you're doing it because you're irresponsible, is a lot different than if you're doing it because of rape, incest.
In the vast majority, it's like less than 1% are rape and incest. The 99.9% or whatever are people just not using condoms or birth control.
War. 34% support war on the left, and a whopping 91% support war on the right.
I died of laughter when reading this. This is the best. This was the one that made me scroll down and go, where are your source? And then it goes, it's been real.co.uk. And I was like, okay, because I hate when people go, I'm a pacifist. Everyone's a pacifist, right and left. No one loves war. There's not people on the right waking up watching war videos and jerking off. You know,
so
like,
then where does this, the war on drugs, how did that become such a big thing? Or the war on terror, or like just using the word war to sell an agenda?
That's left wing. The war on drugs is like, a lot of this stuff comes from media, which is left, which is ways to demonize it because we hate the word war. No person on the right likes war. They think war is sometimes necessary.
No person on the right likes war.
I mean, do you think anyone wakes up and goes, man, you know what's fun? Bombing people.
I mean, dudes have sex with 75 plastic floats. I don't see why somebody wouldn't at least, you know what I mean? I'd imagine
but I'm
at
saying
least
the
one
vast
person.
majority of people, I think the vast majority of people don't want war. We would all like to live in a utopia where no war happens. I mean, I don't think right-wing people go, man, you know what? I'm really happy there's terrorists out there so we can shoot some motherfuckers. Like, no one, I feel like I think the right tends to think war is sometimes necessary. That's why I would like to see this poll. I would like to hear the actual question that led to war, because I have a hard time believing people go, do you like war? 91% of conservatives are like, fuck yeah, I love me some war.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think it would probably be more framed as, do you think the war in Iraq was necessary? But even that,
Yes,
it declined
like that.
dramatically over the course of, like, where people were. But Ronald Reagan did declare a war on drugs. He doubled
that was
down on
his
an
word.
initiative that was started by Richard Nixon. He declared that illicit drugs were a direct threat to U.S. national security, and through a series of legislation and mandatory minimum sentences, it made.
But would you consider the war on drugs a war?
No. Just the framing of it, just to consider, to call it a war. I think that there is, I think, and I don't know, but it seemed like after 9/11, there were a large group of people that were very pro us going and kicking those ragheads' asses. Where I
would agree with that.
You know, and I'm not saying all of those people were Republican or conservatives, but that ideology took hold, where when you look after, or during and towards the end of the Vietnam War, American sentiment was very anti-war. So I do feel like that number it's outrageous, really. And when you say the majority of people, no, I do not think the majority of any group of people are pro-war. But it does go hand in hand with guns. And, conservatives like the idea of being able to protect themselves with guns. I like shooting guns. You know me, like, I like guns.
You just brought up a huge point that I was going to make. Mm-hmm. So I would say 91% of conservatives support defense.
Sure.
and
Sure.
that you said, they like the right to defend themselves.
Yes.
And I feel like war has a connotation of attack. I don't think. I think perfect example. If we woke up tomorrow and we're like, we're bombing China, we're bombing Japan, and people are like, why? Man, you know what? Trump loves himself some more. I think you'd have a 99% well, I think you'd have probably like 91% disapproval, because I think you'd have 10% of crazies who would support him no matter what.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Yeah, I
don't
agree
think
with
that's
that.
what I'm saying. I think I think that question could have been like, are you pro strong military defense? And 91% of conservatives were like, yeah. And then that was changed. That's why that statistic right there made me question this entire chart personally.
The thing that's tricky about the difference between individual and society is also like, I trust myself with a gun. I trust myself to defend myself with a gun. I don't trust you assholes to protect me with a gun. I don't think that you're gonna because I see how much gun violence happens. That's why it's like, it's not me that I'm worried about. It's the rest of those fucking people. And that's what I think the thing is we all see it as me and my individual rights, but our individual rights affect us collectively. You know?
I would agree with that. And that's where a lot of this push and pull comes to back and forth between the left and the right, is a lot of times what we're arguing about is one right fighting another right. We'll go back to the abortion thing.
Yeah.
The right to life fighting the woman's right to choose. Those are two rights fighting each other.
Yeah.
And we have to argue on which one
is righter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And conservatives tend to fall on that. They think that right to life is the ultimate right,
Yeah.
that all of them fall underneath. That's the difference. And gay marriage, freedom for gays versus church's ability to do religious freedom is another right. Granted, I think it's a cop-out. I think because government's way overstepped its bounds on marriage long time ago. So if the government's going to acknowledge straight marriage, they have to acknowledge, gay marriage.
100%. Tax cuts. Looks like 24% of the left supports tax cuts, while 81 or 84% on the right support tax cuts. How do you feel about tax cuts?
I'm pro tax cuts. I got a tax cut this last, and they take a shit ton of my taxes. They take because I'm commission based, they take 40% of my.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. So Trump giving me a tax cut, I was very happy about it. This last tax cut was the first time I haven't paid taxes, and I usually pay about $4,000 to $5,000 every year.
So I'm all about tax cuts for you. It's those fucking corporations. I don't want them getting tax cuts. If you're making ungodly amounts of money, you should be able to give a bit more of it. And now I'm not talking about the small business owner who's got 20 or 50 employees. I'm talking about fucking Coca-Cola. You know what I mean?
You Google Coca-Cola,
Correct.
Those places. Yeah.
Correct. So yeah, I fall on, I am pro tax cuts, but I am not pro tax cuts for the billionaire elite. It's like you said, it's that gray area.
And I feel like the conservative stance is, in a theoretical way, this should work. We tax cut the thing. They should give more to employees. Like my commission should go up because if my company gets a tax cut.
Yes.
And that is the conservative stance. My more liberal leaning side says that's not always the case. I've seen it time and time again that they just cap it off at the top. Anyway, so it's just more money for them. It doesn't trickle down.
Yes,
the way
correct.
It should.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one's not as interesting. Same-sex marriage, gay rights, pretty much same deal. God, 78% of liberals and 87% of right. Does that surprise you, those numbers?
Not at all, because my theory is most people live conservatively and vote liberally.
Yeah, and it's actually a really good point. I like that you come back to that, because that actually does make a lot of sense, and something I've never really considered under those terms before. I'm surprised that 78% of liberals believe in God. However, I'm also not surprised, because we are a nation of Christians, so it's not that big a surprise. I think most people in America are at least guilty Christians.
Well, and then you even think of certain communities that tend to vote very liberal. Hispanic and Black tend to be overwhelmingly more Christian than white people.
Yeah. So unmarried sex, 90% of the left and 80% on the right.
That sounds about right.
Sure. Yeah, whatever. All right. Votes for fairness. Helping those who cannot help themselves. Positive role models. Champions of the downtrodden. Diplomacy. Pacifism. Agreed. On the right, aggression, militancy, upholding order, helping those who help themselves, strong role models, champions of opportunity. Do you got any gripes against any of those?
So yes, this was another one where I was like, oh, okay, this is definitely coming from a source that is trying to be unbiased, but they're doing it. So upholding order, depending on the issue, goes back and forth. We did a whole segment about upholding order and regulating speech to be a certain way coming from the left. So that just depends on that. Fairness, again, I think we have different definitions of fairness, but I feel like a lot of conservatives believe they're truly voting for fairness.
Yeah, and aggression has a connotation to it. Like
Has a connotation.
Aggression definitely isn't an objective word, unfortunately.
No.
I don't know why that word's on there.
Because this comes from it's been real.uk, which UK as a general rule tends to be a lot more left.
But a more objective source than American news network, more of a outside view from the outside looking in, which is helpful sometimes.
Yeah, an outside view, but that was like, I mean, I wouldn't say it's more objective. I would say it would be like if we took a news source from somewhere very conservative and they did this thing. Let's say my wife's from a very conservative country, Africa. Well, she's Zambia. This is her country, very conservative, very religious country. If they did this thing, there would be a lot of negative connotations toward the left. Not even necessarily, no matter how unbiased they try to be. And so when you take someone outside looking in, it depends on where those eyes reside.
Yeah, and that it's through the lens of just one specific person or two people, however many people made this thing, as opposed to it's not even represent.
I think it's overall fascinating, though.
Because there is a big push for conservatism in lots of our allied nations. There's been a sweep of it within the past 10 years. It's definitely on the rise in a lot of places, and part of it might be part of it is definitely a big backlash to this. I feel like there's an elitism that's associated with liberals. I feel like there's this stance of like, you're on the wrong side of history, so we're going to just dismiss you. And I don't know that that's fair.
And that's always going to get a pushback.
Yeah.
When it was the religious, I come back to this all the time. Look how well that worked out for the religious right in the 90s. Not very well. It caused everyone to hate conservatives. Yeah. Because it was arrogant. It was douchey. It was awful. The religious right in the 90s.
Yeah, and just like the idea of microaggressions from liberals, and just like there's definitely it just gets annoying at some points. But I think for all of the pointing on both sides of it, I feel like the conservatives that are on the rise right now do seem to be playing the victim card as if they're the ones that are oppressed.
I would agree that they're both. I feel like they're playing victim card in a different way. It's kind of like how I said the science thing. It depends on the issue. And looking at this chart, that's the thing that made me realize is I feel like even though I like obviously was being biased and sticking up more for the conservative, obviously, I do think a lot of my views it's me playing devil's advocate where I'm like, hey, a lot of times people will frame conservatives away. I'm like, I don't see conservatives in that way. But I also don't see liberals as all quote unquote SJW snowflakes. There are those people, just like there are the percentage of people who love them some war and some guns. Yeah. But I don't think that's the vast majority. I think you represent the vast majority of liberals, in my opinion, are you now within our generation. I think within the younger generation, I don't know. I feel like they might be on more the safe zone, type.
And what do you think about the idea of traditional values interfering with progress?
So I think they can. I also think we're so obsessed with this word progress and change. that's not always a good thing. Sometimes it can be a bad thing. You look at Afghanistan. Have you ever seen pictures of Afghanistan in the 70s and in the 80s? The difference? Look at pictures of Afghanistan in the 70s. Looks great. Looks beautiful. People were pushing an agenda. Granted, it was a very conservative agenda. I'm not trying to make it that was liberal. It was a very religious conservative. And a lot of change went on in that country in 10 years. Wasn't for the good.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like sometimes we see change as always. I mean, our last president, that was hope and change was his whole mantra. We see change as always a good thing when in our personal lives, we all know that isn't real. We've all had change at a job that didn't go so well.
Yeah.
We've all had change in our lives that didn't go as planned.
So what about and I agree with you 100%. I think well said. What about the idea that, and Reagan pushed this agenda, Trump took the mantra, make America great again. When was the past great, and is change even an option?
So I think there were, like everything, there were aspects of the past that were better. There were a lot of aspects that were way worse. I feel like our country now, for gay people, for black people, for any minority, for any woman, is a better place for them. Objectively, I don't know how you could look back and say, no, like I wouldn't want my wife to go live in 1960s America.
Right, 100%.
Like, so that's good. But then there's also, which you see the spinning of the words on both sides, like make America great, it's a racist thing. I'm like, well, if he's talking about specifically those, yes. But the good parts were we had a stronger middle class. We had more traditional families as far as like kids not being raised by one parent or in the system. There's those things. So it's a lot more nuanced and complex. There are aspects from our history that I would like to see return that could be better. But there's a lot of shit that we did. This country has done a lot of great, but we've also done some really
Horrible
bad
things.
stuff.
Yep.
And it bothers me on the right when people act like that doesn't exist either. You know, like, oh no, we've always been great. I'm like, yeah, ask any black person who's lived in the 60s or before that, or even, you know, like literally it's better to be a black person today than it's ever been in this country.
And I wonder if the byproduct of things getting better for other people, because, and I mentioned it earlier, like power wants to maintain power. It's always been that way. So it feels like minorities catching up, women catching up, getting to that level playing field. Maybe it's idealized, you know, maybe even if the laws are to protect them, but society doesn't necessarily. It feels like it's causing the people in power to fear that they're losing their grip.
I would agree with that. I do think there's some deserved hysteria around the rhetoric of straight white male. We've talked about this on our show before. You know, some of that I'm like, ooh, that's some dangerous wording of language. Then there's, I feel like, the other extreme, the where they pit themselves as victims. Like, as a straight white dude, my life isn't too rough in America. Let's be real about that. You know, like worst case scenarios is Twitter might be rough, but fuck Twitter. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know, like in my job, like people love me at my job. I'm not saying it's because of that. I think it's because I'm a nice guy, because there's minorities at my work that people love. One of the highest ranked guys at my company is a black man.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's that, but let's not also pretend that I'm some sort of societal victim, because in America's stance, I do got it pretty fucking good.
Yeah, and I think it's just the things that we choose to key in on and focus in on. Again, back to like I don't think that any system of government was put in place with ill intent. I think that communism was made for just reasons. I think socialism was created for just reasons. Capitalism, just reasons. And then as the institution grows, we start to see the cracks in the sheen. And in America, we get to criticize the government. Fucking good for us. You know what I mean? There's so many countries in the world that aren't able to do that, even still to this day. So I don't think it's un-American to criticize the government. I don't think it's un-American to say that, yeah, America's a great country to live, but maybe it does have its share of problems. Maybe there are things that could be better or be different. And yeah, I don't know. I guess my whole takeaway from all of this was just to kind of present both sides of the argument to hopefully make anybody who's listened this long question, like, am I really so beholden to this team that I'm willing to, like, you know,
am I willing to attack other people, and whether it's
Correct.
verbal or whatever? Yeah, because that's the thing. And I think you said it beautifully. Like, it is very complex and it's very nuanced. And the people who scare me are the ones you said, the ones who are like, I know it all. I know this is the right way for me to live, also the right way for others to live.
Yeah.
You know, and that's terrifying. That type of ideology, whether it's come from the left or the right, has never ended well.
I feel pretty good about it. What do you think, man? Decent conversation?
I think it was pretty good. I don't know how much people got out of it. I mean, it was a pretty interesting episode, though, because we talked about news. We talked about our balls for way too long. And then we talked about politics. So,
yeah.
I mean, this is definitely a one-stop shop for everything.
Thank you guys for hanging out. Steven, if you are still checking this out, appreciate your support. Appreciate any comment. Sorry, it didn't hit me the right way. You're probably fucking joking. You're probably joking. All that nuance gets lost in font, text form.
And Steven, don't worry, I pissed off Jeremy via Twitter
Plenty
and stuff
of times.
too.
Plenty of times. All right, guys. Well, that is going to conclude episode number 22 of People Are Terrible. If you enjoyed this video, do us a favor. For real, take a second to smash that little thumbs up button. It really helps the YouTube channel and keeps us, keeps us growing strong. Yeah. Until next time, and on behalf of both of us, be terrible.